My name is Brian Mier. I'm co-editor of Brazil Wire and Telesur correspondent in Brazil for the TV program From the South. Operation Car Wash was initiated as a joint international anti-corruption investigation in partnership between a small group of public prosecutors in the provincial city of Curitiba, the US Department of Justice, SEC, and the Swiss Federal Police, ostensibly to combat corruption. But in fact, what it did was paralyzed some of Brazil's key industries and attempted to annihilate the careers of some important leftist politicians, including former President Lula. Through the operation, in 2015 alone, the US collected more than $3.5 billion in fines from some of the key companies in Brazil's industry, and also through the operation, they paralyzed the 5 largest construction companies in the country in 2015. Analysis conducted now shows that the result of Lava Jato was that 4.4 million Brazilians lost their jobs, and $173 billion of foreign investment didn't end up arriving in Brazil because of this operation. So we really view it now as a kind of economic and political terrorism that was committed against one political party in Brazil, mainly the Workers' Party, that opened the door for this neo-fascist takeover by Jair Bolsonaro and the military generals who are running the country with him, which is handing over all of Brazil's natural resources at below market rate to US and European multinationals. Right? Lula da Silva was convicted of committing indeterminate acts of corruption because the judge and prosecutors who were working together in a process that had no jury couldn't find any material evidence that he'd committed any crime. Ostensibly, it was related to receiving free reforms and an upgrade on an apartment in a beachside building in Guarujá, São Paulo, but they had no proof that Lula or his family had ever spent a night there. They had no proof that reforms were ever made there. And they, most importantly, the deed was never registered in Lula or any of his family's name. Judge Sergio Moro said, we don't have enough material evidence to specify what the crime was, but I have a strong conviction that Lula has done something wrong. And it's been thrown out now because of illegal forum shopping. It was forum shopped to a jurisdiction that they knew was working in partnership with the US DOJ. The Anglo media kept repeating this lie that Lula was tied up in a graft scheme with Petrobras, even up to the eve of his political imprisonment in 2018. And that's why it was thrown out eventually, is the Supreme Court recognized the fact that this court had absolutely zero jurisdiction over any of the cases Lula had been charged with in Lava Jato. And Brazil's going to take a long time to recover from the damage caused by this US-backed operation, which put Jair Bolsonaro in power. Once Lula's political rights were restored, he gave this historic 3-hour press conference last Wednesday, in which he just ripped into the federal government and the Bolsonaro administration's criminal mishandling of the COVID-19 case. He's leading in all of the polls for the presidency next year, and he also has the lowest rejection rate of any of the 10 top candidates. This is something that's not being properly reported in the English language media. They're lying about him having this really high rejection rate, which is untrue. And he's 13 points ahead of Bolsonaro in the polls. And so even if he decides not to run, he's going to be a major political force next year. If he doesn't run himself, the candidate he supports will probably win the election if there are free and fair elections, if there's not some kind of fascist clampdown made by Bolsonaro and the 17 military generals in his cabinet.